Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 170. Hi, I'm Jill. Thank you for joining us today.
And I'm Chris. Jill and I are your hosts for this podcast and the founders of the Becoming Elli Community.
We decided to name our community Becoming Elli because Elli was the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. Chris and I thought, hey, we want to be like Elli, fit and strong as we age.
You can find out more about the Becoming Elli Community and this podcast at our website, becomingelli.com. And Elli is spelled E-L-L-I. Sign up for our newsletter while you're there.
Today's guest, Suzanne Fowler, has some great information about strength training to share. Let's go to the podcast.
Suzanne Fowler left her corporate job to pursue her passion of helping others lead healthier and longer lives.
Suzanne is certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine in personal training, corrective exercise, nutrition, and wellness coaching. Besides her certifications, Suzanne holds a Bachelor of Science in Athletic Training from Ball State University and a Master of Science in Management from Indiana Wesleyan University. She combines a strong academic foundation with practical experience to promote health and wellness.
Suzanne is dedicated to helping individuals lead active, healthy lives, particularly as they age. Her holistic approach focuses on personalized solutions that empower clients to achieve lasting vitality and well-being. Welcome, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us.
I'm very happy to be here.
Let's just start with what prompted you to go back into personal training. So I gather you used to do training and then you worked for a large fitness company or large company of some sort, and then decided to get back into personal training. So what motivated you to follow that path?
I'm really glad you asked me that question because it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. I have done personal training. I actually owned my own gym at one point, but I had to get back into the corporate game, which I did for 10 years. And I loved the company that I worked for. But in that 10 years, I watched both my parents' health decline in ways that I had never expected. And I it's a tale of two parents, one that stayed fairly active, not going to the gym, but puttering and doing things around the house, and one that just sort of gave up and sat in a chair. And when they both passed, they passed within 3 weeks of one another. And I had an opportunity to sit back and say, what do I really want to do with myself? And I had just moved in, oddly, into a 55 and better community where I live here in Indiana. And I thought, man, I have a lot of people here. Actually, I had people asking me what they could do to prepare themselves for the aging process. And so I set about getting all the information and knowledge that I could that I thought would benefit my clients. So I've spent most of this past year doing certifications and building my knowledge base. Things have changed quite a bit since I was a trainer before, and it was fun to start learning again and seeing what's changed, what hasn't changed, what's tried and true. But that's what prompted me to go back to what I love to do. And I'm having a ball. I'm having the time of my life.
That's great.
So was it difficult to get the courage to leave your corporate job and commit to gathering knowledge and the certifications necessary? How did you decide, and which certifications did you get? Tell us about the process.
Well, the process was, it was hard to leave my corporate job. I loved the people that I worked with. It was also fitness related, but it wasn't close enough for me. I like the hands-on working with people. So I just took a leap of faith and decided that this is what I was going to do. And I feel like things kind of lined up for me because here I found myself in the middle of this neighborhood full of people who are my age and going through some of the same things that I have with their parents or themselves. And to be able to help people work through that time is really kind of a way for me to give back to people. My parents were very generous and gave me a lot of opportunities. And so I wanted to do something that I felt like they would be proud of too. I decided that I didn't want to just focus on personal training. I wanted to be able to offer clients information, knowledge on things like wellness, like sleep and stress and all of the things that go with that. And whenever your personal training, nutrition comes up from about day one. And so I just really wanted a well-rounded approach so that I could offer the best to my clients.
You just mentioned that you recently relocated to a 55 and better community. Can you tell us about the unique opportunity to make meaningful difference in the lives of your friends and neighbors?
Yeah, this is a very active and engaging environment. People, they have a lot of activities here. It's not, although my friends refer to it as my retirement home, that's really not what it is. But the community is very engaged. As an example, I went to the ladies' holiday party last week, and there were probably 70 to 80 women there.
Oh, so this is a large community.
It is there's going to be 900 homes here.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you have to be over 55 to live here. And it was actually one of my neighbors. She said, well, what do you want to do now that you've left your corporate job? Because honestly, when I left, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do. I knew I had some ideas. And she said, people in this neighborhood could really use that. Well, yeah, probably could. So I went and met with the lifestyle director for the community. And I have to say, without her, she got so excited about what I was doing. She was like, oh, we got to promote this. We got to do this. This is going to be great. We have people asking for personal trainers. This is awesome. What do you need? What? And I said, well, hold on a second. I got to get some certifications and I got to do a few things. But I mean, she has been amazing and very helpful in getting the information out there and letting people know about me. And then I train some people at our community fitness center. And I also train a lot of people here in my home. Some people just feel better working not in front of everyone else.
Yeah.
And they actually just built a second clubhouse with a second fitness center that is literally around the corner from my house. So I've had a lot of support from the community, and it has encouraged me to keep going and getting the things that I want and pushing this forward.
Well, I wanted to ask you, our podcast serves women over 50 who want to stay fit and strong. And one of the things that we wanted to talk a little bit about today was strength training. Can you tell us about the benefits of strength training?
Yeah, they're almost too numerous to mention. I got involved in strength training before strength training was really cool for women. And I loved it. I could go in a gym and train on strength as long as I wanted, but put me on a treadmill and might be a good idea to see who's chasing me. And I love the strength aspect. For one thing, it boosts your metabolic rate even at rest. So in my younger self, I thought, well, if I burn more calories, I can eat more. So,
yeah. There's a lot to be said for that, isn't there?
yeah. And then the one thing that I've watched as people age, the thing that they start to lose, they lose a lot of like balance and some of the other things that you could always do, which is something else that I focus a lot on. But once you lose that strength, your independence starts going out the window, because if you don't have the strength to get out of a chair, if you don't have the strength to walk around a store, your independence just fades to the wayside. And I told myself on a personal note, in the 6 weeks before I moved into this neighborhood, I ended up having to stay with my parents for 6 weeks while they finished my house. And my mom literally sat in a chair all day long and just stared into nothing. She wasn't reading. She wasn't watching TV. She had a beautiful lake behind her that she never looked at. And this just wasn't the person that I knew growing up. And it just wasn't. And I thought, if I can keep one person from that position, I will have done something worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned the boosting your metabolic rate. And does it help with balance? You said something about balance there. Does being strong keep you more balanced?
If you work on the balance along with the strength, yes, for sure, because you're not as likely to, if you stumble, you're more likely to be able to recover than you instead of taking a big fall. If you don't have the strength to prevent that big fall is coming, which is one of the biggest things for women and strength training is that bone density.
Oh, right.
The heavier the weights you lift, the denser your bones, the better result that you're going to have from strength training. And I guess I was a little bit surprised when I went back in terms of women should lift heavier at this age than they did in their 30s, 40s, because we need to be able to make up for that, the things in menopause that are taking away from that strength, hormone changes. They give up that mobility when you don't have strength. And I just feel like a lot of women, go with oh, well, I don't want to bulk up. I don't want to, well, A, it's not going to happen, but B, if it did, that would be to our advantage.
Right, right. And I guess if you don't have strength, you become frail. Is that an accurate?
Yes. And you're more likely to develop osteoporosis. And while strength training can't necessarily reverse osteoporosis, it can definitely slow the progression and allow you to be more active, do more things without the fear of falling and breaking a bone.
So that sort of led into what I want to ask you about next, which is that there are lots of stereotypes about women doing fitness, especially older women who strength train. And I'm going to guess that that's probably one of the big things that has changed from when you did training however long ago and now. But can you talk about those stereotypes and how you think we can strive for something different?
Yeah, I mean, I know that when I was training several years ago, the fear was we're going to bulk up and we're going to look terrible. And one of the things that's been kind of ironic way, I guess, or one of the things that I was doing, like I said before, it was really in vogue to do. My mom was very much against my strength training. She had a stereotype in mind, and girls just aren't supposed to lift weights and aren't supposed to do those things. And now the people that are coming to this age now have been probably more active than our parents were in terms of exercise, maybe not working out in the yard and that kind of thing, but a lot of people are active and more active than they used to be because of all the information that's out there. One of the things that I also try to work with clients on is not only are you not going to get bulky, you can boost your metabolism, you can get stronger bone density, you can improve your heart health, you can improve mental and cognitive health, because if you're strength training correctly, there's a real cognitive component to that, in that you have to be, if you really want to get the most out of your training, you have to be kind of tuned in to what muscle you're working and how that's supposed to feel. And that's one of the things that I get a lot is even the people who have worked out and have even worked with trainers, they don't understand initially that cognitive piece where you've got to kind of connect your mind to, okay, this is the muscle I should be working. And if that's not what I'm feeling it, what am I doing wrong? And that's where I come in. How can I help?
That's something I have noticed over the years in training is I go in sometimes and I'm just busily doing whatever. And then I realize I'm not actually training the muscle I'm supposed to, because I'm not thinking about it. So then when I actually think, all right, use my back instead of my bicep or whatever, start focusing, I can actually feel the difference. So I know what you're talking about 100%.
Yeah, my clients have gotten so tired of hearing me ask if they're braced, which is my term for before you move at anything, make sure your entire core is locked. Your stomach is pulled into your spine, your glutes are activated, because at that point, you can't cheat. You can't lean back to get more weight up. You can't lean to the other side to get more weight up. You have to work that muscle. And people find you can't lift as heavy when you're doing that, but that's okay because it's more effective. My clients were making such a big deal about it. I now have t-shirts that say, "Are you braced?"
That's cool.
The Indianapolis Colts have their summer camp just probably less than a mile from here. And one of my clients went to see them one day and texted me and said, "These guys are not bracing."
Yeah, your clients, you're teaching them well because they know you have to be ready and have your abs tight and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, this question is for our listeners who are beginning to consider strength training as part of their exercise routine. There's maybe different ways of describing strength training. Like, some people picture big barbell weights but what's the best way to get started? And then how do you know when it's time to progress? But if someone was going to get started, never did strength training before, take us through that, please.
My approach would be to probably start with resistance bands, because once you introduce, especially barbells, to some extent dumbbells, you have that opportunity that you haven't really learned how to do the lifts yet. And so you're more likely to get injured, which at that point you're going to stop. And that has been another one of my biggest things, is making sure that I don't get people hurt. And I feel like the athletic trainer in me sort of helps with that, because I know what can cause injury and I know how to prevent it. But I would start with resistance bands because they're great. You can get all the resistance that you need from resistance bands, and you get a more even rep, I guess, of motion. You'll get a more even motion if you're doing the resistance bands, and especially with barbells. And like I said, sometimes with dumbbells, you can kind of get off balance and then there you are. So I mostly with resistance bands and some body weight, because there's a lot you can do with body weight, and you can learn a lot about the form and what needs to happen doing that, and then progressing into strength training with either dumbbells. I don't use a lot of barbells, mainly because they're not here. That's one reason. But also, it's not something that people need to do. You can do a lot, like I said, with body weight. I do a lot of my training here, and we can do circuits and we can do balance. And I start all of my sessions with balance, and then we move into resistance. And the other thing that's important to your point about how do you progress is you do have to progressively overload yourself as things become easy. As you couldn't do 10 reps. Now you can do 15. Okay, well, we need to up that weight. I like to do a variety of things so people don't get bored. If you go in and do the same thing day after day after day, first of all, your body's going to adapt to that, and you're going to stop seeing the results that you were getting. And then your body has to be consistently challenged in order for it to make the changes that you need to make and want to make.
Are there a few bodyweight exercises that you think basically everyone should be doing?
Well, one is, if you want to stand upright when you're 80, learn how to do planks.
Good one.
For the core, because that works the whole body. You can do wall sits where you just go as far as you're comfortable and just see how long you can sit there to build the strength in your legs. You can do modified push-ups, and I know a lot of people don't want to do those, but that's another whole body, kind of gets everything involved and stronger. Those are probably my top three.
Good.
Where I would start.
So, and you just was talking about how you progress. Again, I was at my gym and they were talking about there's these equipment that I never really liked, but they were getting rid of some of it. And people complained. They said, I've been using those for 10 years. And one of the
It's my
trainers sort of
favorite.
muttered to me, and they're doing the exact same thing that they did 10 years ago. You know, like that. Well, this is what I do. This is my routine. And they never up the weight. They never increase the count or whatever. How do people progress? So you said that you need to do it, but should you? So if you're doing body weight, well, if you're doing a plank, you're not going to add weight to it, but maybe add some time.
Maybe.
Some people do.
Yeah, I know. Some
Put
people
a big
do.
barbell on my back, right? No, I'm kidding.
I'm not one of them, but some people do.
Yeah, I've seen people with plates and things on them, but I don't want to do that. So
No, I don't either. It's a lot of it. A lot of it is you want to start out with the lighter weights and more reps, just so that your body can kind of start adapting to the load that you're placing on it. And one thing that I really like for people to understand is, especially if you're just starting into strength training and you think that you're going to see results in a week or two, that's not going to happen. It takes your body 5 to 8 weeks to say, oh, okay, I guess we're doing something different. Let me start adapting to that. It's honestly not one of the most popular things I say to new clients, but later they're appreciative of the fact that I didn't set them up to say, oh, sure, 2 weeks we'll have you lifting this. And I like for people to understand that, because it does take time for your body to adapt. As you get better, and like I said, if you start out and you can do 10 reps and now you can do 12, okay, well, let's bump the weight up a little bit. Go back down to 10 reps. And then as you get better at that, and just keep progressing. The National Association of Sports Medicine has a really solid plan for progressing people through strength training. And it's one of the reasons that I chose that particular certification. My previous certification had been through the American College of Sports Medicine, but I felt like NASM gave me a better foundation to work from. So you start with strength endurance. So you start building that strength over time. Then you add muscle development. Then you add, I have to think of the whole pyramid, but it's a way to, I always share it with clients and say, here, this is what it's going to look like. And let me, it's just kind of a roadmap, if you will, for what we're going to do. And that helps people understand where we're going, where we started and where we're going. And I don't want to take up too much time on the podcast, but it's something I can certainly send to you.
Well, that would be great. Yeah. If you send it to us, we can link in our show notes to it. And, because people want to see what that is, some listeners will want to check that out.
That.
I'd love to see it.
And if someone is going to start strength training, what kind of equipment would they need? I know you just said you recommend resistance bands, but what would you suggest someone get, or should they just go get a gym membership, or what do you suggest?
That card isn't that heavy.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people are uncomfortable going to the gym, especially women. I think it's changed quite a bit, but I do know that I still have clients who are intimidated by the machines and aren't really sure what they should do and how they should do it. And the one thing that I would say about the machines, and sorry if I'm jumping around, but they are more of an isolated movement. And if you're using resistance bands, if you're using dumbbells, if you're using body weight, you're burning more calories and you're having to engage more muscles. So for instance, doing the bracing that I talked about, you're engaging your core. So you're getting core strength while you're working your arms or your legs or your shoulders, versus sitting on a machine and having to go through a fixed motion. So I really feel like dumbbells, resistance bands are the way, and they have some really reasonable options on Amazon that they come with 3 or 4 different resistance bands plus instructions on how to do it. And then I would start with light dumbbells and then decide, these just aren't enough for me anymore.
So at that point, once they're not enough, then you have to decide whether you're going to invest in heavier dumbbells, or then maybe you figure out if you can go to the gym because they'll
Yeah.
have a selection.
Yes, for sure. And by then, hopefully you will have, or if you do join a gym, and I do think it is worthwhile to maybe talk with a trainer a couple of times to just get a feel for the equipment and how it works, because it's all different. So I think there is some value, and I'm not trying to promote my personal training. But there is some value to learning about it so that you don't get hurt. And that's one of the big things I hear from, especially like the women in this neighborhood. We don't want somebody that's going to get us hurt, because it can be catastrophic at this age, as your age.
Right. And good form is so important when you're lifting heavy, which is
Absolutely.
what, really gets you strong. Well,
Yep.
one of my goals for 2025 is to become more consistent with my weight and strength training.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions on how to make strength training a higher priority and help me to stay consistent with it? Any tricks of the trade?
Huh. What's going through my mind is, I know that you like to do, I think, bicycling and some other activities. The thing that strength training can do is make that more enjoyable because you're stronger.
Yeah.
You can push through and say, you know what? I want to be stronger so that I can ride further. I can ride longer. And just strength training does not require everyday focus. In fact, you have to leave at least a day in between muscle groups that you're working. So working in, and I've read several places that say, you know what? You don't have to invest any more than 30 minutes in strength training if you're doing it correctly.
Yeah, that's right. So if I can get to focus on my why, I want to do strength training because, and really focus on that. Yeah.
That works on a lot of things.
So that's where sometimes having a goal, like sign up, if you know you're going to do, I don't know, a bicycle event. It doesn't have to be a race, but something.
Well, not necessarily. Like you're going right for the action plan. I'm going to the why.
Well, to me, the why sometimes is if I actually put something on my calendar that that's a
that
big
works
motivator.
too, I suppose. Yeah, it isn't necessarily for me. I don't know why.
And my big why has been, and it's interesting. My sister and I both decided as we watched that our why was going to be, I don't want to end up like that. I don't want to break a hip. I don't want to be immobile. I don't want to be dependent. And it's kind of a harsh reality, but it's the one thing that can really help avoid some of those things.
So it's what we can do now to avoid some of the getting stuck, like perhaps some of our parents may have been or what have you. Mobility is so important.
Don't wait. Now is the time to capitalize and really build those habits. And they do last a lifetime. I mean, you have to keep them up. But one thing that has encouraged me in going through some of your podcasts and why I started listening is the people who started working out in their 70s, in their 80s, and they're building these healthy habits. And it's inspiring.
Yeah,
absolutely. But you're right. The earlier you start, the better in many ways, because it's hard to start building strength when you're 70 something.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's
right. It's harder.
It's harder. Right. Yeah. And it's harder to recover, and it's harder to recover from an injury. So
yeah.
And just like you said, too, about osteoporosis maybe not being reversible, there's some things that aren't reversible once they happen. And if we can start now, maybe that never happens.
Right. Start building your bone density now. And the other thing that kind of goes along with that is when you're doing strength training, it promotes protein synthesis so that you are building that muscle, stressing those bones, because walking is a great exercise as far as bone density in the legs because it's weight bearing, but doing things upper body is just as important. You don't have to walk on your hands.
That's a good point. Walking is a good exercise, but as bone wise, you're not impacting your upper body with it.
Your spine, right? And your wrist. So if you fall, you're not as likely to break a wrist or
shoulder problems.
exactly.
One of your tagline on your website is fun, fit, function. So I get the fun part and the fit part, but could you maybe explain what you mean by the function part of it?
I can. I have always sort of used a functional training mentality in that the things that I teach people to do are the things that will help them in their activities of daily living. Picking the groceries up, picking the grandkids up, running with the grandkids, moving laundry around. The exercises that we do are going to train your muscles and your mind how to do those in a safe manner. And I've always liked functional training because that's what people really want at the end of the day. I don't think most of us are out trying to be, I mean, I'm sure there are. Most of us aren't trying out to be bodybuilders. We just want to be able to do the things that we've always done and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Right. One of the services that you offer on your website is corrective exercises. And I'm not really sure. What does that mean? Does it mean that I'm doing the exercise wrong or there's something wrong in my body and this exercise fixes it, like rehab? Or is it like a body imbalance, like my right arm is stronger than my left one and I want to equal them? What do you mean by corrective exercises?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is taking things, a lot of us, they now have a term for it they didn't have before, the tech neck, where you've got your head forward and your shoulders are hunching over. And so corrective exercise focuses in on some of those muscles that are overactive and works to relieve that through stretching and calming down those muscles and building up the ones that are underactive who are not helping us hold our heads up. And the body is a kinetic chain from head to toe. And it's just making sure that all of the parts are working together in the best way and in the healthiest manner.
Great. Yeah, that tech neck.
So obviously, Chris and I spent some time looking at your website because I found on your website that you also do a personal assessment. And can you tell us about that? What do you assess and how do you do it? And is this something that you have to be in person to do?
No, it's not. A lot of it is, that's where I bring in some of the corrective exercise because I have a static assessment where I look at it. How are things in the chain looking? Are the knees turning in? Are the knees turning out? Are the feet turning out? Are the feet turning in? And then I do some dynamic assessment where you might do some squats and hold, and I look at that and say, okay, so now when this person goes to squat, their knees are falling in. So we've got to work on those muscles on the outside of the leg to keep them from going in. And the other thing that I assess is I'm big on body composition and not from the perspective that may sound. I have never been a proponent of body mass index. I feel like, especially when I was younger and when I was in shape and had a decent amount of muscle, I was considered obese. And I was like, now, wait a minute, this can't be right. So I have a scale that I use with clients and they said, well, how accurate is this? Well, it's probably not 100% accurate, but we're going to keep using the same scale as we go.
So it's consistent.
So that it's consistent measurement. And I got the scale, I chose the scale that I have because it gives me weight, okay, but it gives me lean mass, gives me fat mass, and gives me BMI. So then I can really start to work on body composition because what you want is a higher amount of muscle, obviously. And that lean mass is not just muscle, it's bone density, it's hydration, it's muscle. So it's kind of all of those things together. And if you have a high proportion of that, you're probably healthier. Because to me, body composition is a better indication of overall health than just body fat or just BMI or just weight. And so I work with clients, and and sometimes it's hard for people. If your weight is staying the same, but your lean mass is going up and your body fat is going down, we're on the right track.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're getting stronger. Yeah, that's great. Well, Suzanne, Jill and I became aware of you when you so generously used the buy a coffee button on our website. And thank you so much for that.
Yes,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I know you're a listener to our podcast and a member of our Becoming Elli Community, the personal Facebook group. I wanted to ask you, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot a little bit right now, but can you tell me what value do you find in the podcasts and our community?
I really, like I mentioned earlier, it's inspiring to listen to some of these stories. And one that I listened to early on was Jen Stevenson on the fast, feast, repeat. I personally, after went through menopause, kind of got smacked in the face with reality that I had not expected. And I had tried keto. I had tried Weight Watchers. I tried all the diets, which I've done I've struggled with my weight my entire life. And I just gave up. And I thought, you know what? This is just what menopause is. This is just what it's going to be. I thought, well, while I'm training these women, at least I can tell them I can relate. I understand what you're saying. And then I tried the fast, feast, repeat, and it has literally changed.
Intermittent fasting.
The intermittent fasting. Thank you, Jill. I'm sorry. Yes. The intermittent fasting has completely changed. It took some time, as she mentions, in it, my body kind of had to go through the process of, okay, are you starving us? Are you going to feed us? What are you going to do? But since I started that in June, I have lost almost 40 pounds. And because of my strength training and the other things that I'm doing, I've been kind of keeping track of my own journey, and my body fat has gone down over 30%.
Wow. That's 5 months. That's incredible, really. 40 pounds?
It is. Almost.
And you're still training. So you're watching your numbers and seeing that you're mainly losing fat.
Yes.
Because that's the other thing about weight loss is you worry about losing your muscle.
Right.
And your bone density.
So were you lifting and doing strength training as you were doing intermittent fasting the same time together?
Yes, I was doing that. I also had an aerobic component, because even though I sort of said earlier I don't do it, I do, because you have to do it. It's all part of the package. It has become a lifestyle for me. It's not a diet. If I miss a day or something happens, I don't stress about it. I just go right back into it. And it's literally been life-changing for me.
Wow.
My husband was gone for 6 weeks. He came home and he was like, holy cow.
What happened with you? You look great.
Who are you? But it has been, and I've been telling my clients that, we're going into the season of resolutions. And I said, I don't want to hear any resolution. I want to hear lifestyle change that you want to follow.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I do like that.
So it's not resolutions, it's a lifestyle change.
Exactly, because the resolution is going to go out the window in about 2 to 3 months.
Oh, if you're generous, I think.
Maybe 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know. Yeah. I just looked up for our listeners that are wondering, the podcast that we did was back in May of 2020. It was number 58 with Jen Stevens, intermittent fasting with Jen Stevens. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that too, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to go back and re-listen to that episode. It's one of our most popular.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how long ago that was.
Well, we've been podcasting since 2018. So it just feels like yesterday in so many ways, but
Yeah, you guys have built an amazing community, and I'm just so glad I found it. I'm just grateful.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thank you. And again, thank you for your support. We do appreciate that. Well, you sort of brought this up with the fasting, but you're certified now in both nutrition and wellness. Is there anything about nutrition that you would like to share with our listeners?
That's a great question. And aside from the intermittent fasting, which I just started mentioning to clients because I wanted to see what it did for me and how it worked before I started making recommendations. But the biggest takeaway for me in that nutrition coaching was nutrition is actually still a relatively young science, and it's always going to be changing. So what might have been true 10 years ago may not be as true today. And we see it all the time. Eggs are good. Eggs are bad. Do this, do that. And I think you just have to keep evolving with it and trying to sort it out in a way that makes sense for you. So that was my biggest takeaway was whatever you're doing in nutrition, just keep in mind that you need to keep coming back and seeing what's changed.
Yeah, we had someone on the podcast who brought up those, what were they? The low-fat cookies that everyone used to eat because they're low-fat.
The Snackwells?
Snackwells, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we don't. I bet they don't sell those anymore. But
you know what? I haven't seen those, but there was a lot about that, and just it used to be low fat, low carb.
Yeah, everything was low fat. And now
that's changed, and so that's one thing that I just never want to rest on my laurels about, I guess.
Have to stay current, right? Well, what about wellness? Do you have anything that you'd like to share with our listeners that you've learned about wellness through your recertifications and all?
I think the big thing is, and it's out everywhere now, is the impact that sleep has on so many aspects of our life. There was a lot in that course about sleep and sleep hygiene and how to make sure you're getting better sleep and the things that you need to do. Honestly, one of the hardest things for me has been not being on a screen within 30 minutes of going to bed. I'm getting better at it. Let's just say that.
It's a challenge. It's when you start really paying attention to that, you notice how addicting that. It's hard to just say, all right, I'm done with this for the day and put it down.
Exactly. And the stress of work, and a lot of people, I went through it myself and understand, is the stress of dealing with aging parents and some of the things that go along with that. And how do you deal with that? And how do you keep yourself healthy when you're doing that, when everything is going towards that direction?
It's easy to take care of other people before taking care of yourself. And you intellectually, that's not the way to do it. You have to fill your own cup before you help other people. But it is something important to keep in mind. Good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners want to find you online or contact you about your services, get support for their strength training efforts, where would they go?
You can go to everybodyfitwestfield.com is my website. And all of my contact information can be found there. And I am, in case you can't tell, I get geeked about talking to people about these things. So
that's great.
If anybody wants support, reach out.
Okay. So, and that's everybodyfitwestfield.com.
Correct.
No dashes, no spaces.
Nope.
Just that. Okay, great. And I know Chris will put that in the show notes.
Well, we sure do appreciate having you on the show today, Suzanne, and sharing your information with us.
I am thrilled that I could be here, and thank you again for asking me.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you. It's been a delight.
Okay. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I really liked what Suzanne had to say about strength training and also her transition to moving into a 55 and over community, getting ready for aging and that type of thing. It was great.
Yeah, and that they were very eager to have her do her classes or whatever there. That was
Yeah, it's always great to hear about folks that want to stay fit and strong. That's cool.
definitely. I liked her recommendation about starting using resistance bands when you start strength training. I bought some resistance band years ago and I used them, but I've sort of forgotten about them. They're hanging in my closet. I always liked those bands too for when I was traveling. So I guess I should get them out, use them again.
Yeah, the cool thing about those, they go in different angles because that's more like functional real life. That was really helpful, some of the things she shared. And, I liked when she talked about doing those 3 exercises, if she had to pick some. If you want to stand up straight, do planks. She also mentioned wall sits and modified push-ups. And, all that just sounds great because those are things you can do when the microwave's running, when you have a few minutes before your next thing you're going to shift gears to, and kind of squeeze it in when you can. And, that's to me always helpful for trying to figure out quick ways of staying fit.
I know planks are good for you because it's like a whole body kind of thing, but that's another one. I tend to forget about them. So that's a good reminder and they're easy. I mean, you don't need any equipment for planks.
Right. And you only need a minute. Well, if you're only doing a minute plank, but a minute plank, if you're not doing planks, that's quite a bit, especially if you do good form, which is the most crucial thing. I think she talked about that a lot in the podcast is having good form.
Yes. And if you only have a minute, you can do 2 planks of 30 seconds.
That's right. And then if you're really good at planks, you could do those, I don't know, on one elbow, arm in the air, foot holding, and then the other foot in the air, like, I don't know what you call those, modified for stronger planks.
I don't know about
there's
that
lots of ways of doing planks.
Yeah. I've done those shoulder taps one where you do a plank and then you take one hand and tap your shoulder.
Yeah.
And then do the other. But okay. I don't know about the sticking your leg in the air.
Yeah. Arm in the air, leg in the air, one arm, one leg planks. Those are intense.
Yes.
But I just wanted to include some of the people that listen to Becoming Elli. They're not beginners. So, wanting to include them too. There's always a way you can go a little further with things.
That's true.
What else I wanted to call attention to was that chart that she sent us that I included in the show notes, the NAS organization that has progressive plan for weight training. It was the first time I'd seen it broken out into 5 steps like that. And, perhaps that's something that all the trainers already know, but it was an awesome thing for someone like me I keep going back to the beginning, when I skip a few sessions at the gym and then, my progressive weight training's not going as well as it should. So anyway,
not progressing.
I thought that was cool. Yeah, my progressive took 2 steps back.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. So yes, and people could find the link to that in the show notes.
Well, I actually posted the picture of it, made it into a JPEG so you can make it bigger either on your phone or, on your computer screen, however you listen to this. I know a lot of people listen to our podcast when they're working out or when they're driving. So don't do anything you shouldn't. But, it's worth coming back to it later and taking a look at that chart.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. It was nice of her to share that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're listening, let Chris and me know if you have some thoughts on our talk with Suzanne or how you're doing on your own fitness journey. If you have any thoughts about strength training, please feel free to share.
Absolutely. We love to hear from you. You can leave us a message at becomingelli.com. And you can also find us at Becoming Elli on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Please consider joining our private Becoming Elli Facebook group. So it's 2025, and we've decided that to do a challenge this year, we're going to do a January bingo card, something new to try this year.
If you're not familiar with a bingo challenge, each of the 25 squares offers a suggestion to you for getting more fit and strong. To be like Elli, the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. And although we can't promise that you'll be up to beating Thor, this January bingo 2025 card does give you some new ideas and inspiration for the coming year.
So you can go to the Becoming Elli website. There's a PDF there There's also a graphic on the screen that you could download or copy, but the PDF you can download. And then just let us know when you hit 5 across, 5 down, or diagonally. An extra challenge if you do the whole bingo card.
Yeah, you can use it since there's 25 squares, 25 days of January, right?
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of this bingo challenge because we're excited about it and want to hear back from you. It could be a really fun thing for us to continue.
Yes, it'll be fun. Check it out.
If you've been listening to our podcast recently, you may have noticed that we're suggesting some other podcasts you might enjoy. And here's one for you to check out, Boomer Banter Podcast.
Wendy Green is the host of the inspirational Boomer Banter podcast. She pursues real talk about aging well. At Boomer Banter, Wendy explores financial literacy, mental and physical health, relationships, and having a purpose to help you age well. Listen to our podcast at our website, heyboomer.biz. That's HEY, boomer, one word, .biz, biz.
You may remember Wendy from New Goals and Dreams with Wendy Green, which was episode 139 of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
It was great talking with you today, Chris. I'm looking forward to our next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
I am too. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.